Hey guys, in this video, we're going to be talking about something called substitution. So substitution and elimination. And elimination. So what is substitution? So let's say we had two functions. So we had x equals 1 plus 2y. And we had something that was like this. So we had the function 3x equals 3y. Actually, let's change that. Minus 3y equals 15. Perfect. So we're first going to learn how to use substitution to solve for different variables. So we use substitution and elimination when we have two functions and we have two different variables. So the first thing to do for substitution is make one variable equal to another. So we have to isolate it. So the x here is isolated all by its own and it equals this part right here. So we can input this whole part into the x over here, into this function. So then we would have 3 times 1 plus 2y. So this whole part came down to the x minus 3y equals 15. So now that we have one variable, we can solve for y. So we have 3 plus 6y minus 3y equals 15. We can combine like terms. So we have 6y and negative 3y. So that becomes 3 plus 3y. So plus 3y equals 15. We can subtract 3 on both sides. So now we have 3y equals 12. Divide 3 on both sides. And then we get y equals, so 12 divided by 3 is 4. So y equals 4. Now that we know y equals 4, we can go plug this back into any equation. So I'm going to pick the first one because it's easier to deal with. So when I plug 4 in for y in this equation, I'm going to get, so x equals, so 1 plus 2y. So I'm plugging in 4 for y. So 2 times 4. So equals, so 4 times 2 is 8. 1 plus 8 is 9. So comma x equals 9. So this is your answer. So y equals 4, x equals 9. Let's look at another example for substitution. So let's say we had here the function negative x plus 3y equals 15. And we had 2x plus y equals negative 2. So I'm going to isolate here. I can choose any function, but I'm going to isolate the y in this equation. So to do that, so I want to isolate the y. So what I'm going to do is just subtract 2x on both sides. So minus 2x on both sides. I can do it this way. So minus 2x, minus 2x. So now we have these two cancel out. So plus and minus cancel out. So now we have our new equation, which is x, negative x. This part stays the same. So negative x plus 3y equals 15. And we have y equals negative 2 minus 2x. Perfect. Now that we know what y equals, we can plug this part into this part of the function on top. So now we would have a negative x plus 3 times the whole thing. We're not just doing 3 times negative 2 times negative 2. We're multiplying minus 2x. We're multiplying by the whole thing. So we're going to use parentheses. minus 2x equals 15. So now that we have only one variable, we can solve for x. So right here, so first we're going to distribute, so negative x plus minus 6 minus 6x equals 15. Combine like terms again, so we have a negative x and negative 6x. So that is negative 7x, so negative 6 minus 7x equals 15. So add 6 to both sides. We're going to get, so 21. Oops. So we're going to get 21 equals negative 7x. Divide 7 on both sides. And we get that x equals negative 3. So we're going to put that here, x equals negative 3. Plug this back into one of the equations. So we know that from this equation right here, we can solve directly for y. So y equals negative 2. Let's use a different color. Y equals negative 2 minus 2 times, and we know x is negative 3, so negative 3. So negative 2 times negative 3, that is positive 6 plus negative 2. So 6 plus negative 2, or negative 2 plus 6, that is 4. So we know that y comma y equals 4. So this is your answer. And that's substitution. For elimination, you're kind of combining two functions together. So we're going to look at two examples of how to use elimination. So let's say we have 2x plus 3y equals 20. And then we had negative 2x plus y equals 4. The first thing you want to do when talking about elimination is to line up everything. So all the x variables are on one side. All the y variables are on one side. And all your answers are also on one side. So now that everything's lined up, all we're going to do is add. But in order to add, we need to make sure that one of the variables cancel out when we add the two functions. So 2 plus negative 2 is 0x. So this cancels out. So because 0 times any number is 0, so 0 plus, so 3 here, 1, so 1 plus 3 plus 1 is 4, so plus 4y equals 20 plus 4 is 24. So we can kind of write this out without the 0 as 4y equals 24. Divide 4 on both sides, and we get y equals 6. Then we can go back in and plug in 6 for one of the equations. So let's pick this one, the bottom one, because that seems to be the simplest. So negative 2x plus y equals 4. We know that y is 6, so negative 2x plus 6 equals 4. Subtract 6 on both sides. We get negative 2x equals negative 2. Divide negative 2 on both sides, and we get x equals 1. So we know that x equals 1, and then y equals 6. And that is your final answer. Let's look at one more problem. So let's say we had 3x plus y equals 1. And then we had 2x minus 2y equals 6. Notice that in the previous question, we had the x's cancel out because they were the same number, but one of them had an opposite sign. So this was plus and this was minus. So in this case, we have right here, we have different numbers for x or y, and we need to change the signs too. So here we have a negative 2 right here in the second function. All we'd have to do is multiply this top equation by 2 so that the y's can cancel out. So then when we multiply this whole thing by 2, remember we have to multiply the right side of our equation as well. So we would get 6x plus 2y equals 1. And you just move this one over. So 2x minus 2y equals 6. So oops. So remember, this has to be 2. You can't just leave it as 1. Okay, so now that you have this, you can add. So we know we can add now because we have 2, 2, and one of them is negative. It can be any number, it doesn't have to be 2. Just make sure that they're the same number and one of them is negative. So when we add, we're going to get 6 plus 2 is 8, 8x. 2 minus 2 is 0y, so plus 0y, which is just 0, equals 6 plus 2 is 8. So again, here in this case, we can write it as 8x equals 8, and then divide 8 on both sides, and finally x equals 1. Plug it back into one of the equations. So let's pick the bottom one. It doesn't matter which one we pick. So 2 times 1, because we know x equals 1, minus 2y equals 6. So 2 minus 2y equals 6. Subtract 2 on both sides. We're going to get negative 2y equals 4. Divide negative 2 on both sides. And then y equals negative 2. So our final answer would be x equals 1, comma, y equals negative 2. And that's elimination and substitution.